paperwork, that sort of thing. You set your stuff down, and then you come up into the ceremony room and you pick a bed, you set it up. Some people bring crystals. We encourage like writing utensils and paper, because journaling is a beautiful, great, very helpful thing to do before, during, and after the process, and then moving forward as well. Especially for like the weeks following, you'll have a lot of aha moments and realizations. So you want to have a pen and paper ready to write those down. So you come in, you pick a bed, you start meeting people, and then it's around like 6 o'clock, we start doing introductions on a Friday. So we go around the room, everyone introduces themselves, kind of like why they're there, what their intention is, that sort of a thing. You get to meet the team at that time. And then we go into breath work. The breath work that we do at that time typically happens at 7. And it is just showing you techniques to use if you kind of feel stuck or fearful, or you're kind of having a challenging time. It's something to come back to and bring you back into your body. And then we start around 8 o'clock, 8:30 with the whole process. Now, this depends on who the server is, because Colombian tradition is very different than, that would be different than what I'm explaining to you right now. So then we go through the clearing process, and everyone gets cleared of all the energy, the space is cleared, and then the medicine carrier starts moving into the whole process. Sometimes we do rapé ahead of time. We will offer anyone who wants it, or it's kind of like, there's a flow. It's kind of like, is it just anybody, or is it like people who've had it before? It's like it's an intuitive thing in that aspect. And then you start drinking around 9 to 10, depending on kind of how things have kind of fallen into place and working out. And this is a non-Colombian journey again. You're done typically around 1 and 3 in the morning. And at that time we offer food. So dieta friendly stuff, a little something, because you haven't eaten since about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And people tend to be really hungry because of the purging process on top of not eating. Most people aren't used to going like 12 hours without eating. So there's a little bit of food served. People can like talk and mingle and hang out if you want. There's also a sacred fire outside that during the ceremony you can sit at. And I don't want to go too much into journeys, because it's like, you know, it's very, yeah, like that's something that like, I'm very cautious to get giving people like too much of that, you know, but it's like, it kind of takes a while to kick in. And, you know, typically people feel it in their body first. Some people have visuals, some people don't. It's still working. Even if you don't have visuals, it still works, even if you fall asleep, that sort of a thing. Some people say that if you fall asleep, you're doing deeper work. So, and then most people normally, so they're done like 1 to 3, it was more like 1:32, 3, 4 o'clock. Some people talk for a while, some people go to sleep. And then breakfast is served at 7 o'clock in the morning. After breakfast, we have an integration. Integration is where we all go around and we kind of talk about your journeys, your feelings, your thoughts on it. Disappointments, like different things, just kind of whatever you feel like sharing. Sometimes we have music therapy, like sound therapy, like singing bowls and stuff like that as part of that. Sometimes people hold little classes. After integration, lunch is served. After lunch is served, when I'm up there, I do readings. And that's kind of like free time. So people can either come do readings with me, they can go on a walk, they can journal, they can sleep, whatever it is. They have a big gap from about like noon to 7 o'clock at night. At 7 o'clock at night, we go back into breath work. This night we do holotropic breath work, also called shamanic breath work. There's so many different words for it that it's just more of the like, it kind of feels like hyperventilating type breath work. This could be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than an ayahuasca journey, which is cool. We've had some people that is like, well, that was my favorite part of the whole weekend. From there, like sometimes we cleanse again. It depends on who the medicine carrier is, or we just go right into the process of drinking and journeying. You have people dressed in all white that are there to keep you safe, help you get to the bathroom safely. And we have little tea lights that you hold up if you need anything, like if you want rapé or hape, or you have no idea what you want or need. Sometimes your legs don't really work, so you sometimes need help to the bathroom, whatever it may be. Like the facilitators are there to help you. And then it's kind of like the same thing. You'll be done about 1:30 to like 3-ish in the morning. And then from there, again, you have snacks and everything. Most people sleep. I can't really sleep on those weekends, especially when I personally drink. I don't get much sleep at all. And then from then you just go into, whatever you want to do. Some people stay up and journal. Some people go out by the fire. It's very like up to you personally what you feel like you need to do. And then we serve breakfast again at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then we have integration again. Sometimes integration happens while people are still eating. And then people are kind of starting to leave Sunday morning, I would say around, it depends. Like some people stay as late as they possibly can, which can be, into the evening, early, late afternoon, whatever it may be for them. Some people have to leave at 4 a.m. to catch a flight. So sometimes that happens and that's a little intense. Some of those people choose not to drink the second night or to drink less. Did that fully answer your question?
I think so. Is there ever any component of like ceremony, like singing or chanting or anything? You said there was like a clearing. Is there? Everybody will have their own personal artifacts and things, but is there anything specific that the servers there do?
Yeah, so it depends on who the server is. My favorite was when Freddie LaRosa is our carrier. He has a beautiful voice. He's very talented. He was actually there my first ceremony as the musician versus the carrier. And like, I have fallen in love with his music. He's like one of the most beautiful humans I've ever met. And his music it moves your soul. He's on Spotify. Like I just can't even explain. Like, it's very powerful and moving. Lots of the carriers, either they themselves provide the music or they bring in music or we bring in music. And when we don't have music, we play like music that is like indigenous, and very like in alignment with journeying, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know of another place where you as a group, you sing mantras.
Yeah, like the diamonds and stuff. Cool. I'm gonna mention them when we have the slide on ayahuasca. But does anyone else have any questions for Jen? Either in her intuitive, if you want to connect with her about her intuitive services, you can. Jenifer Winn with one N. It'll be in the presentation in the PDF notes as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the name of the singer, Freddie?
Freddie LaRosa.
He's on the slide, Jen's slide. I have a picture of Freddie LaRosa and Tetra Ortiz.
And you can also get this from him too. It's like he's from Argentina. This is like Argentina Palo Santo that's properly harvested. And like any of the Palo Santo we can get is like not properly harvested and it's actually harmful to it, so I don't know. He's just a super great human being that I suggest connecting with on some sort of level, even if it's just his music.
Yeah, you guys, the Pachamama Sanctuary is linked in the presentation, and there's bios on both of the servers they have there and all kinds of pictures that are awesome.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
All right, so I think I'm going to just go ahead, unless we have any hands raised, which I don't know. Nobody's unmuted. So why travel? So I have been traveling basically my whole life. I feel like I was born into it. I was born in Germany. My parents were there overseas, and I was born on an army base in a tent. And I looked up the base later in life and found out that camp was made into a refugee camp for Romani gypsies, like later in the 90s. And now there's actually a museum for Romani people. And of course, my name Roma is in line with that. I feel like my soul was picked up over there. So I have been traveling a lot since I was a kid, and I came over to America when the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, and I kind of was in a lot of different schools, kind of didn't really do school, but travel has been my teacher, and it's been what I thrive on. My website is romanomad. My email is romanomad@gmail.com. So this topic is really one that really is personal to me. So I hope you don't mind if I take a little bit of time to share some of my journey with travel and the past 4 years specifically. So, and my hopes with sharing this with you guys is that you can incorporate more travel into your life. Road trips, Ren fairs, retreats, oh my. So we have Megan here, and her job is creating these awesome retreats all over the world. And that is a beautiful way, but I'm gonna kind of go into some travel that's not retreats also. So there's many ways to do it. And I love retreats also. So in this picture down here is a little Vardo that I built. A Vardo is a wagon, a camping wagon. I had to dig and dig and dig to find that picture of when I had it at Ren Fair, at the Maryland Fair. Tara will recognize the campground there. We used it as the band green room when I was dancing with Wine and Alchemy that year. That was in 2016. So just some pictures from my travels. Definitely going to a lot of temples was important, and any kind of outdoor space. Like, travel does not have to be expensive at all. And I've realized one thing in life, and that it's time versus money. Like, you either have lots of time and no money, or you have lots of money and no time to enjoy the travel. So I thought that a good way to present the idea of travel is different ways you can travel, maybe that you haven't thought of. So 4 ways I've kind of broke it out to is you could volunteer. I've done a lot of traveling by volunteering, just like seeing a cool festival I want to go to. Like, I volunteered at Gem and Jam. I was just like, yeah, put me to work, I'll do it. And that festival, the tickets would have been probably $300 just to get in, plus another $150 to do camping, and then you get the whole experience. But if you're a volunteer, we were able to go there a whole week early and set up camp. So we had camp, and we were in between places, my travel partner and I at the time. So it gave us some place to be. We were actually working at the Gem and Mineral Show in Tucson, Arizona. And Gem and Jam is a really awesome music festival in Tucson that coincides with the Gem and Mineral Festival, which is the biggest trade show for crystals in the world. And it happens in February every year. Usually this year it happened in April because they postponed it. But so the benefits were that was lowered costs. We didn't have to pay to go to the festival. We didn't have to pay for camping. We got to meet some really cool new people. So not people that we wouldn't have met. You kind of stay in your own bubble. When you just buy tickets to go somewhere, you're in a bubble. Or if you say you go on a cruise with your lover, you're kind of in a bubble. And I did that for my honeymoon. It was like, I felt like I was in prison, kind of like on this boat. I felt like just so bored. There was nothing to do, and there were no young people in my age group. So meeting new people is a really big benefit when you're volunteering, because you're going to be put, with teams and working in teams. You get to see stuff behind the scenes and network with people. So whatever it is you're interested in, there's going to be volunteer work around that. And you don't always have to go super far. Our friend Heather, who's on the call tonight, does a lot of volunteering locally, and probably, I'm sure, like Peace Corps is a volunteer. AmeriCorps is how I got to Maryland. Actually, I moved here for a volunteer job. And just the idea of seva, you're serving a lot of times. And when I travel, I will stay at temples for extended amounts of time and do service, which is often dishes and cooking and serving people food. But you know, it gives me a place to be and to be in nature, usually camping or staying in a dorm, and really connecting with the temple and the land and the deities and the practices, the mantras and things like that. That's what was important to me. So whatever is important to you, you know, like Christian missionaries do traveling if you're spiritual in that way. Then the downside of volunteering, FOMO. When I was volunteering at Gem and Jam, I missed a lot of shows during my shifts, obviously, but you know, you can also travel for work. That's what I've been doing for the past 4 years, traveling with the Renaissance Festival. I have a guaranteed job when I get there. Camping fees are pretty minimal, and it gave me like a hub from where to explore. So say if you got it, you know, transferred, or you could get a job. I have a friend who's in Hawaii. She's a traveling nurse, and she just can pick her, you know, next place. So if you don't have money to travel, think about incorporating your work with travel. You can make money. So utilize your skills, you meet new people, more opportunities, and you're lowering your costs when you're working because you're making money. And like with the Ren Fair, I'm not paying for a hotel because, you know, the work provides a location for me to live. You do get tied to a schedule. My weekends are completely not free when I'm working at Ren Fair because I'm at where the party is though, so it's it's okay. But so you're tied to a schedule, and work can be difficult. Like oftentimes when I work in Tucson at the Gem Show, I'm lifting heavy singing bowls and just heavy heavy metal, mostly things, because I work with a company that imports singing bowls from Nepal. So the work can be really grueling. It can be 10, 12-hour days. But another thing is to teach. So whatever it is you do, maybe there's an opportunity for you to go and teach it somewhere. So share your knowledge with the rest of the world. When I was looking into where places to go, and last year for 2020, I wanted to do something really big for the new year, the new decade, and I found that's when I went to Central America. So I reached out to festivals and I said, hey, I offer this style of dance. Can I offer it there at with your program? And so I was able to teach. I wasn't getting paid, but I got, you know, into the festival. I didn't have to pay for camping, and you know, I was with my peers, other teachers, other dancers, other artists. So the networking and the building the portfolio, you know, you can always teach. It does require some training or expertise. You got to be good at something to teach it. Or oftentimes you learn a lot while teaching. Another reason for travel is to go learn. So if there's something you want to learn and it's not around you, seek it out. So where I am in Maryland on the Eastern Shore, there was nowhere to learn yoga, to teach yoga. You could take yoga classes. At one point when I first moved here, there was nowhere even to take a yoga class. And then there became studios offering yoga classes. And now there's actually a couple places to do YTT. And our friend Megan here, who's on the call, in fact, can tell you a little bit about that, because she's bringing her own YTT right here to the shore. So in my travels, I tried to always learn something. In 2020, I did an apprenticeship and a training with Southwest Herbs for herbalism. The year before that, I did aerial yoga teacher training after I had been practicing at studio for a while. So yeah, always learning is a good option. It does usually requires an investment of money as well. It can be expensive, but it's something, you know, you save up for. And you also want to research and find out about the places that you're learning from. Let's see. My first really solo international trip that wasn't my honeymoon cruise, and it wasn't, when I was a kid, but was Thailand in 2017. And the circumstances, I was friends with a belly dancer, and I was just kind of visiting the band I was Wine and Alchemy. We were playing a house show at Damien and Brett's house in Richmond, Virginia. We got to the house, and it was full of like Buddhist altars and Thai bodywork stuff, and I didn't even realize she does Thai bodywork. So I ended up in 2016 doing training there for Thai bodywork, and then going in 2017 with my friends and 10 other people to Thailand. It was a truly transformational trip. I cannot tell you how much it changed my life. So I definitely recommend getting out there if you haven't left the country. Something to really think about is to, change your perspective. I had a picture of a headstand there because it really does change your perspective a lot when you travel. We were studying mostly Buddhism out in Thailand. We took a lot of bodywork sessions and went to the old medicine schools for Thai medicine. We went to my teacher's teacher, his teachers. So we visited a transcendental meditation teacher. We visited a spirit medicine teacher who his job is, there's 5 part disciplines in Thai medicine, and one of them is spirit work, and that involves usually working with the dead. So he would burn the bodies, and that's the traditional way to do a funeral in Thailand, is to burn the bodies and their immediate possessions that aren't being given to the family. So that teacher, the spirit medicine teacher, Ajahn Samanand, he's tattooed us on, and it was actually on my birthday. And the ink that he used is made from the ashes of a certain type of ash. If you die in a certain type of way on a certain day of the week, I think it was like drowning on a Tuesday or something. This is what makes the goes in the tattoo ink. It's very like mystical stuff out there. So we each got tattoos. We couldn't really pick the tattoo or the location. It just had to be somewhere above, as high up as possible. And I already had a tattoo on my back. Usually they'll go in the center or the middle of the back. So I got it on my shoulder, and it's the 5 lines of Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, Mata, Pitta, and Acharya. So it's the enlightened one, the Buddha, the Dharma, which is the teaching, the Sangha, the community. Mata, Pitta is your mother and your father, or your ancestors, and Acharya is your teachers. I learned so much on that trip. Actually, when I got back is when I realized it was time to end my marriage. And I didn't know that, I didn't have it planned out that that's how it was going to go down. It's just like when I got home from Thailand, I just realized that the love wasn't there anymore. And that's how transformational that trip was. So I was there for 30 days, just under 30 days, 27. That actually kickstarted my Ren Fair trip. 3 days after I got back from Thailand, I got on the road and I was working at headed to Arizona to work at the Renaissance Festival. So I didn't have any plan the day before I got, coming back from Thailand. I had no idea that was any kind of a thing that would happen, but it did. Guatemala and Nicaragua, like I said, I kind of reached out to them. A couple of festivals. Cosmic Convergence was in Guatemala on Lake Atitlan. It's a really interesting lake community, a very beautiful place. They had a 3 or 4 day festival, and they had a red tent, which my Awaken the Goddess workshop was at the red tent. Tons and tons of workshops. They had so many workshops, a lot of Kundalini classes. They had 5 stages. One stage was all kirtan all the time. Yay! One stage was all psytrance till 5 in the morning. Boo! And I was camped near the psytrance, unfortunately. But it was amazing. There is a whole community on Lake Atitlan, and I've talked to Megan about this before because she's traveled to some of these same places, and it was really awesome to have Megan to talk to about this when I was planning this trip. And I flew into Guatemala, and I flew out of Costa Rica. I didn't know how I was going to get from Guatemala to Costa Rica. I just knew that that's the direction I was going and when I had to be there. So I had cosmic convergence in Guatemala. We had, a couple days before and after that for travel. Pachabuela was the next festival, and that was in Nicaragua on an island in Lake Nicaragua, which is the largest lake in the world. It's like an ocean with a volcano, 2 volcanoes that form one island in it, and it's like paradise, like the Garden of Eden. Megan, you've been there. Anytime you want to hop in and talk about that. So on Ometepe, actually, there was a really beautiful cacao place that did raw vegan cacao. So often, and I'll talk about cacao too, they'll roast it, but this is raw, so they ferment it instead. It's just beautiful. The Zapalate, where I stayed in a tree house, was an eco village. It was like a permaculture eco village place. A lot of people were just sleeping in hammocks, and we had like a really fancy place, which was just a tree house with no windows. It was a really awesome experience. We did a lot of cacao in Nicaragua on Ometepe Island. This picture here, they had, hot tubs that were heated by fire, and we would wash the dishes with ashes from the fire and eat out of coconut bowls. Like everything was sustainable. Everything was from the land, from right there. And, that's the kind of thing I wish we could have here. And the kind of thing, the experience you want to bring back with you in a way that we can live on this land. Okay, let me check time. I'm going to get into a little bit of the plant medicine now, and then we'll go back to retreats with Megan, unless you have anything to add about that.
No, I'm just like getting teary-eyed over here because I haven't been there I've been trapped in America minus my Mexico trip in January, and I'm just like, it's the getting out of this matrix and realizing that there's a different way to live life. And it's culture shock because we're so numb to the fact that there is another way to exist. And it's so beautiful to see how connected and minimalistic these people live, and yet their sense of joy is beyond, and and you were saying, like, if you haven't been out, like, get out, because you learn so much about yourself and the world, and all of the 4 ways that you've mentioned to travel. I've done them all, and they all serve an amazing purpose, and are all different ways to travel, and within your own means and within your own lifestyle and within your own needs. But yeah, let's talk.
I realized later, after I did those 4 things, I thought of another big reason for travel, and that's friends, to see people, friends. I met my friend Laura down in Guatemala. Like I already knew Laura. I knew she was going to be down there. So like we hooked up down there. And when I was just recently in Tulum, I hooked up and met up with my friend Allie, and she's already connected into the yoga community there. So having friends, and every time I go across the country on these Ren Fair journeys, I stop along the way somewhere. There's friends all over the country, and you don't have to have a passport to have these life-changing experiences. It definitely helps because the culture is so different. Like in Thailand, it was so spiritual. How many like altars were everywhere, incense was everywhere, chanting, monks on the street every morning, every market full of incense, flowers, and candles to be offered, like sacred, just the cultural differences are great. All
Yeah,
right.
and once you break into the international world, you realize how small that is as well.
Right, you're like, oh my God, running into people or like
everywhere.
Teacher and the dance teacher at Cosmic Convergence is from Baltimore. Like, really?
Yeah. I mean, the first place that I took a job at in Nicaragua, the owners are from Baltimore. Like the owners of the place are from Baltimore.
I ran into people that I know in other places. Like someone I met in Salisbury, I saw at Gem and Jam, someone who had come to like a yoga class was there. It is a small world, especially if you're in a certain type of community, which is like, the spiritual community or yoga or whatever you're into, music. So let's talk a minute about the pineal gland. It's called the pineal gland because it's shaped like a pine cone. It's approximately in your third eye center of your brain, but back a little bit. It's this tiny little part of your central nervous system that responds to light. It's in charge of your circadian rhythms of when you get tired. It produces serotonin and melatonin, possibly DMT, we don't know. We do know that fluoride causes calcification or a hardening of that pineal gland. And it's thought by most spiritual, if you look at ancient yogic texts or depictions, they show like an eye here on the third eye. So, I mean, it's part of my thinking. The reason they put fluoride in our water here in America is not for our teeth health, but I think it's more of to control our minds from, expanding. That's just my little.
Well, and also, why do they need to shove a Q-tip all the way up our nose to touch our pineal gland?
Oh, do they really get that far? So avoid city fluoridated water and toothpaste if you can. And one way possibly to decalcify would be sun gazing. This is looking at the sun when it's low on the horizon, like when you stick your arm out, when there's just one finger between the sun and the horizon, you're extending your arm as far as you possibly can. Each finger is 15 minutes when you do that approximately. So you want to catch it when it's just one finger down. You can have a soft gaze in either the sunrise or the sunset. I couldn't find the artist on that pine cone, but these are third eye pine cones. You can get these necklaces, which are crosscuts of pine cones, and it shows like that sacred geometry, that Fibonacci sequence that kind of connects us all. What all this material world is really a spiritual world actually as well. So DMT, dimethyltryptamine, it is the God molecule is another word for it. It naturally occurs in a lot of plants and even in some animals. So the frogs, the bufo frogs and toads produce DMT in their skin. It's thought that DMT is released when you die. So our bodies produce it somehow, and that's probably what leads to hallucinations, out-of-body experiences, and all that. So I believe in science and spirituality at the same time. I don't think that one refutes the other. I think that, just because there's a chemical happening doesn't mean there's not something spiritual also happening, because I do also believe in that. Actually, been working on this book project about what happens after you die, and it's a lot similar to, like, if you've read into the Tibetan Book of the Dead, what happens in the days after you die and what you see specifically. Like, there's specific things that you see. And like in Dante's Inferno, describing the different levels of hell and paradiso. And so there are these texts in India. The Guru Purana describes the afterlife as well as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And so I do believe that this DMT is not just a chemical reaction. So I believe in these spiritual places because after our bodies are gone, personally, that's how I believe. You can believe whatever you want, but there is this piece of science that says that dimethyltryptamine is released when we die. And so that's also, we can access it through, and ayahuasca is the God molecule, is DMT. Okay. Getting into a little bit of the spirit medicine, cannabis is one of the oldest plant medicines. The origins are possibly Mongolia, Siberia, the Hindu Kush, or somewhere in Southeast Asia, like meaning Thailand area or Vietnam area. But 12,000 plus years ago, before it was a country and all that. So it was spread all along it was practiced in China, spread through the Middle East and India, and the Greeks and Romans had it. It eventually got to the Western world. So it was actually introduced to the American world through the slave trade and through colonization, colonial capitalism. So the British wanted a place to grow hemp so that they would have rope and fiber and clothing. It was actually mandated that anyone that owned 60 acres or more in America was supposed to grow 100 hemp plants to send back to England to provide that resource. In fact, the Constitution was written on hemp paper. And part of the land agreements in early times of our country required that you had to grow hemp on your land. So it was brought over by the slaves. If you look at Jamaican culture and you see Bob Marley and his dreadlocks and he's smoking ganja. Okay, the word ganja comes from India. It comes from the Ganges River. And these were Shivites or Shiva worshippers. So the top picture on this is a Shivite. They have dreadlocks. Their skin is covered in ash, and sometimes the mark of Shiva on their forehead, which is 3 lines, or somewhere on their body. So they smoke cannabis as part of this spirituality. The Black people were freed as slaves in Jamaica at one point, and then slaves were brought in from India. And then that's how Indian culture influenced in Jamaica and kind of influenced Rastafarianism in that way by introducing cannabis there, even though they had cannabis in Africa. So you can smoke it, obviously, but you can also take a tincture or an extract of alcohol extract or distill the pure oil. You can also do the activated herbs. I work with hemp a lot, and I'll do heat treat the herb to get it to go from CBN to CBD. Same thing can be done with THC. I don't want to go too much into detail about that, but if you don't like smoking, you can drink it as a tea or an edible. And that's probably all I want to say about that, because it's such a huge topic that I could go on for, because it's something that I work with now, so I don't want to take up too much It is becoming more and more legal in America. It was heavily, it's Schedule 1 drug still federally, but recently the Safe Banking Act finally allows dispensaries to deposit money into banks where they were just holding loads of cash, and you could only use cash at a dispensary, whether it was medical or recreational dispensaries. I think there's 17 recreationally legal states now, which is a lot, and 35 states have some sort of legalization. So that's like more than half. I wouldn't be surprised if everyone on this call has tried it or is high right now. Love you guys. Okay, psilocybin mushrooms. Origins, it's found worldwide. There really is no origin for this one either. It's one of these old ones. This there's a great documentary. If you haven't seen Fantastic Fungi yet, definitely watch it. It's free on the internet somewhere. I forget where, but you can find it. And it's very informative if you want to dive deeper into mushrooms. My dear girl Ashley's on here. She's like the mushroom queen, but not just psilocybin. She knows stuff about every mushroom. She is a mycologist. So thank you for being here. So magic mushrooms, yeah, there's many different species, not just one. They're all over the world. This is a world map of everywhere it can be found. A lot in Central and South America, a lot in Europe, tons in Europe. One of the oldest cave art is this Tassili mushroom shaman art, which was found in the middle in Algerian desert. He's got like a bee head and mushrooms growing all over him. So that is 6,000 to 9,000 BCE, very old stuff. Some people think that the mushrooms are actually the origin of consciousness and what makes us different from apes. Usually they're dried, and then you can make a tea, steep them in hot water, or you can just eat them dried directly or with food. 1 gram is a typical dose, but I often will just do like a microdosing, a 0.5 gram at most. But the effects: hallucination, dilated pupils, heightened senses, and laughter, increased brain activity. It's like you can't just pinpoint exactly what's going to happen. It has a lot to do with your emotional state and your surroundings. I personally like to be outdoors, and I like to be somewhere where there's fire and music, live music preferably. So if the conditions are just right, I do like to indulge in some magic mushrooms at times, and it can really, give yourself like a different perspective. That's what we're talking about tonight with traveling. Not only, physically traveling, but you can expand your mind in many ways.
Well, and just a side note, a lot of drugs, including marijuana, are like jailable offenses in Bali, but mushrooms are everywhere. It's insane. Like if you smoke weed, you'll literally get arrested and go to jail. But there's these islands off of the eastern coast of Bali, and like you walk and like every bar it's like, oh, magic mushrooms, magic mushrooms, magic mushroom ice cream, magic mushroom, dessert, this or that. But it's just kind of funny to see when you travel, like what is accepted and what isn't accepted. Just a little side note.
I can't imagine just eating an ice cream cone of it in some random country and place. I definitely prefer to have like a container for my tripping. Like it's got to be, where's the music, where am I going to be? Some kind of plan.
I also wanted to add a little side note, if I could.
Yes.
About Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. They actually recently opened a lab which studies psychedelic mushrooms as a treatment for PTSD, addiction, depression, anxiety. So I actually have a friend who quit smoking at that lab. with mushrooms, and I just think that's really cool. It's becoming a little bit destigmatized from such a prestigious institution, so that's very exciting.
There's so much stuff to be talked about with this, like what Paul Stamets has done in his research, and Maria Sabina in Mexico, and her spiritual practice with mushrooms. I could go on and on.
Well, just to talk about that, Ashley, I went to a weekend lecturing series with this organization that uses MDMA and psilocybin to treat extreme depression, PTSD, mainly with veterans, and kind of like not their spokesperson, but the person that was like giving the presentation who went through their process. There's centers in Charleston, Colorado, California, and somewhere on the upstate East Coast that are already using MDMA and psilocybin, and you can go in, obviously paying copious amounts of money. But now that there's research that's being funded at Johns Hopkins, and also they're lobbying like in Congress and to the government and showing them the results that they've had with MDMA, psilocybin. I forget. I think there was one other.
Probably
Like,
cannabis.
I think that they were using more, like
Psychedelic.
more of a psychedelic.
Is it Iboga?
I don't think so. But yeah, it was amazing to like see the studies, and to see like, you can fill out an application to be a test or like a patient within funding if you can't afford the treatment.
Oh, like you can get treatment if you're looking for treatment and you can't afford like a retreat kind of thing, like especially if they're doing this in Johns Hopkins, that's local to us in Maryland, so that's a good thought there.
Yeah. Well, their main East Coast centers and Charleston currently.
Okay, cool. Not too far. Sounds like a road trip.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that that Johns Hopkins lab has a website and a wonderful newsletter that you can get. I'm on their mailing list. They just sent something out this past week. They talk a lot about the research and what's happening and give you some data, and you can check out some of their events and things.
Awesome. So moving on to cacao. This is the plant form where we get chocolate is from cacao. So chocolate is cacao that's been highly refined and processed and added fats and milks and sugars and things. So this is not just chocolate. It's from the American tropics, but it can grow in basically any tropical environment. So it's cultivated all over the world, like Africa and East Asia and everything. But traditionally it's done like a ceremonial drink. It's roasted or fermented, ground up, then mixed with water or spices and heated and blessed. There was this beautiful song that we learned in when drinking cacao in Nicaragua on Ometepe Island. We were doing temazcals every morning and every sunset. Well, not every sunset, but every morning. I think it was available several times throughout the day, but I would just go in the mornings. And it's just beautiful song. I'm really drawn to song. So most of my trip in Nicaragua was around cacao, and it's very like heart opening. It triggers like this compassion response. So you can really connect to other people. It's a very gentle medicine, a plant medicine. So it's not like, pow, you're going to feel hallucination, It's very subtle, but it hits you in like this emotional place. It's somewhat of an aphrodisiac, you feel really just like connected easily with people, and maybe you want to move your body, you feel the music more, you want to touch and be touched. It's like this mood enhancing feeling. It can be slightly nauseating. It's very bitter. So I actually often felt nauseous with the cacao, but I didn't ever end up throwing up or anything on it, but because it was so gentle, I guess. But typically it's done in a group environment and they sing songs. In the Temazcal, we would sing 4 series of songs, one for each element, and each time we went into the Temazcal, which is that ground building on the bottom there, it's very small, but it would fit like 20 people, and there's a hole dug out. We would put the hot stones from the fire in that hole and then shut everything, shut the door. Everyone would pile in, squeeze together, you're shoulder to shoulder, sweaty, naked bodies touching each other, and you're just sitting there. And they put like cedar and sage, or cedar was more common, plant on the rocks, on the hot stones, and then they would pour water. You'd get that wave of hot steam, and then boom, 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 boom. The drums and the rattles and the chanting in Spanish would start, and they would go around and sing songs, and each session would be about 15 minutes, and you'd come out into the fresh air and then stay for a while and then go back and see. This would go on for about 2 hours of in and out of the Temazcal, drinking cacao. Kava is the root of a plant. I didn't even put what it looks like, the plant looks like. So there's kava bars are popping up in the United States. There's a place called Kava Sutra in Denver, is where I discovered it, or I guess I already knew about it. You can get it at herb stores as well. Kava, you can just order it. It's an herb. But it's a root from the Pacific Islands. It grows in Hawaii even. And it's made in, when you get it, it's like dried and it's like a powder, brownish, whitish, beigeish powder. And then you steep it in cold milk. I use coconut milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you like. I think you can use cow milk, but you want to make sure and do it cold. You never want to heat it up because it changes the components somehow. So you drink it cold, like it's a cold beverage. You never mix it with alcohol. At Kava Sutra, you can get it mixed with different kinds of fruit juices, with coffee, with like black tea, but it's always gonna be cold. So your coffee, everything's cold, not ice cold, but cold, like it's kept in the refrigerator. And what it does, it's a sedative, and very numbing. Like my whole mouth was numb, my face is numb. You feel euphoric, but I think I actually was taking it when I was getting my tattoo, my big back tattoo, and it was like helped so much with the pain. Like incredibly helped with the pain. So if you're gonna sit for a tattoo for a long period of time, I highly recommend making yourself a kava tea. Brewing up some kava. And here's a picture of some Samoans getting some traditional tattoo work where they hammer it in. And I think that the two are linked, and so it's a fun thing to drink. It's not overused and exploited like some of the things can be that come from other places. So hape or frappe is something Jen mentioned. It's, you never want to Google it because it's like rape drug. You got to get the frappe, frappe. But what it is a old form of nicotine, tobacco plant. The tobacco plant, it's the sacred tobacco plant called Nicotina rustica, or they call it mapacho in Central America. It's a shamanic snuff, healing tool. It's often got other herbs in there with it. It's never just Nicotina rustica. It's never just mapacho. But the main ingredient is tobacco, and it's burned, and then take the ashes. It's the ashes of tobacco, and you you can't just snort it because it would be so awful. You actually have to use a special device to get it up in your nose far enough. So the one on the left corner is you put it in your mouth, like you put the nape in the end. I have a thing. I forget what these things are called, but you put some of the powder into the tip here, and then you put your mouth here, and you blow like really hard, really fast. And because you want to get it up there, it's pretty painful. I find it pretty painful. It's like very stinging to the mucous membranes, but you're gonna get, you feel like everything just opens up, is how I felt. It's a vasoconstrictor, so it's I mean, it's like when you first smoked a cigarette, you know, like if you ever did smoke a cigarette, it's like you get that really heady feeling. But when I was in Guatemala, there was a shaman there that was administering it. So he actually had a long pipe, and it was in the end of the pipe. He put the pipe up to your nose and blew, and we did it that way. And then so he would do both sides, and then we would sit down by the fire, and then they came around with sananga, which is another plant they would drop into your eye, which also stings. Crazy amount of stinging in your face after all that. But it was supposed to help with like night vision. They do this combination where they're hunting at night. You know, I did it when I was down in the jungle. I don't know, and I have some, like I could do it here, but I think it's more for like walking around at night, or if you're going to be outside at night. And you know, Megan and I were talking before this. I do, and she mentioned this too, I do believe that certain things, you know, it's of the land and it should be done in the land kind of thing. This is one of those kind of maybe here, maybe there, whatever. I don't usually choose to do it because I'm not a fan of nicotine, but I will occasionally. Okay, so the next one is not a plant medicine. It's a frog medicine, and I wanted to include it because we're talking about DMT and the sources of DMT. So there's two types of, there's the bufo frog, the Colorado river toad. It's out in the desert Southwest. It's in Arizona. It's in Colorado, all throughout Mexico. You know, taking the secretions of the toad skin and either licking it fresh or drying it out and then scraping it off and then smoking it. I've never done it, no judgment on it, but basically through my research, it's this type of DMT. It's when you smoke it, it lasts like 5 minutes to 30 minutes. I have tried something called salvia, which I think is similar, where you like smoke it. It's a plant. I should have included it here. There's so many, but you basically have this really dissociated experience. I had a friend who was smoking salvia. Is that what it's called, salvia? And she was convinced that there was another dimension and another person living in her house. And every time she would smoke it, like it kind of just makes you pass out, like immobile and unresponsive, but you're having this like really super intense hallucination or situation, which my friend thought she was literally in another dimension. She was like seeing another dimension. And so they call it white outing. So it's like blackouting, you're unresponsive, you're immobile, but you're completely aware of something that's going on, and it's usually some like trip that you can recall. But you forget them pretty quickly too. Cambo is something I saw a lot when I was traveling through Central America. If you guys find yourself traveling down there, you might come across it. You'll see people with these scars and marks on their body. what happens is they burn you with a little stick, like an incense stick or something, and then they take the skin, the secretion from the frog, the giant monkey frog, and they put it on the blisters where your burns are. And you know, it's another 5 to 30 minute high, DMT high, so you're totally in another world kind of situation. It does cause permanent scarring, and there have been accounts of people dying if ingested, and like house pets, like for dogs, family dogs will eat the toad or come in contact with the toads out west, and they've been known to also die because it is a poison. It, actually, if you think about it, nicotine is also a poison. It's created by plants to repel insects. A lot of these things you know, have purposes, but there's not been a lot of research with, I don't want to talk a lot about it because I've never done it, but it seems like most what you can find on the internet is saying it's dangerous, stay away from it, you know, but you will see it in if you do some traveling and talking to people, and you will find people that have had really incredible experiences through it. So it might be something you will consider, but it does usually cause some type of purging. It's very purgative. So vomiting, nausea, diarrhea, situation, allergic reactions. And then we're back to ayahuasca. It only grows in the Amazon basin, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. It's a vine. I've got a necklace from the vine here. Looks like that one's in the picture you can see. But so the DMT, our bodies naturally, when our bodies encounter DMT, it quickly breaks it down. We're like, no, we're still alive. We don't need this here. Get this out of here. So in order to really have a long, sustained DMT experience, it also has to be combined with the MAO inhibitor. Oh, I didn't put out what MAO stands. It's like methyl ethyl oxidase, something like that, inhibitor. But it's so our bodies produce it, and it breaks down the DMT. So you want to stop or control the production of whatever that MAO is. And I think a lot of antidepressants are MAOI inhibitor. MAOI is an inhibitor. So the ayahuasca is usually paired with the chacruna, which is what where the MAOI inhibiting effect comes in. Like Jen said, it'll last 4 to 6 hours. It's also very purgative. You might find you're going to physically or emotionally purging, visualizations, which you're going to get with DMT. Oftentimes people will talk about the grid, and it kind of looks like that picture at the top there. A lot of the art from the tribes that practice with the ayahuasca, the sacred spirit vine, will do this kind of art. And I experienced it myself, where I was seeing this like visual grid. So it's ceremonially used by Shipibo people in Peru, and the Santo Daime Church, which is all over the country, all over the world, but it came out of Brazil, and they will have these ceremonies or these trabajos where they do work, which is they drink daime, which is ayahuasca, and they will sing hymns, these Christian hymns, for hours and hours and hours. So it's very ceremonious. You can also be pharmahuasca. You can make ayahuasca in a lab. Like all the chemical components of this combination can be made in a laboratory. So, you know, I feel like if you're going to do ayahuasca, you should probably, you know what you're doing and know what you're getting into, and why are you doing it, like the intention, like Jen mentioned, the intention. And you know, I think being in the land where it comes from is is important, but not necessary. If those people and the teachers come here and are offering that medicine and it's something you want to try to, you know, change your life, change your perspective, then that might be for you. Just be aware that there is pharmahuasca out there, and just know that if you might come across it, and kind of research, you know, who is practicing, what's the format you're being given it. You know, I had a ceremony where I was told I was taking a heart opener, and it ended up being MDMA. I would have just rather known that it was MDMA, you know, and instead of just saying this is a heart opener and this is that. Ayahuasca, well, you know, when I took ayahuasca, it was actually given to me as like in a chocolate, and then they're like, oh, but also there's mushrooms in there. So I was like, you know, I kind of wish I had knew all this going into it, or at least been better informed while it was happening. You know, because yeah.
I wanted to ask about, so you said you drank ayahuasca once or a couple of times, or?
A couple of times I did these ceremonies where we ate it. It was in chocolate, like a chocolate that was mixed with mushrooms, so psilocybin mushrooms. But we were also given like orchid powder and MDMA. And it was just like, I just wanted to be with like the grandmother.
Right. Yeah. Experience is simple. Yeah. So was it the same group both times?
It was for me both times the same group. So
are you allowed to share like where you were?
It was here in Maryland.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about connecting with Jenifer and seeing if she can tell me about the Sedona group, because that's close.
Right. I know, like I was trying to get in contact with the groups out in Arizona that do peyote, like on the reservations. And man, there's so many I didn't include. Peyote was one of them, and what's that, San Pedro?
Yeah, San Pedro.
Have you done that?
No, but there's a shop, you know, in downtown Tempe that has, yeah, they sell the cacti, and a friend of mine purchased one and planted it, and it's got the few arms growing now. And I just so I'm thinking about planting it also. But what I really want is to have kind of an idea of a journeying I don't know, format, as opposed to just, okay, I made this tea, now I'm going to drink it and sit here, you know, like I'd like to have some chants or mantras or some music lined up or some instruments out or some artwork planned, some paints around. I'm not totally sure yet how I want to form it. So
yeah, I definitely prefer to be outside. And I mean, I like day tripping, but I feel like it's more common that I'm offered at night. The full moon drum jams in Arizona. Perfect place.
Roma, your experience wasn't with a Taita though, right? Like she was talking about?
He was he's a shaman. I guess he's a shaman from Mexico.
Oh, okay. Because what she described sounds a little bit what I've been looking at through a different Taita in that group that I invited you to. Yeah. They just did one in Virginia this past weekend, and they're doing another one in Virginia in September. He's from, I think he might be from the Columbia region or something like that, that gentleman.
Cool. So yeah, there's lots of herbs have different effects that are often added with this stuff. Herbs you can find at herb shops. I mean, I've been working with herbs. Kelly works with the herbs out in Arizona. A lot of us do. These are going to be very gentle plant medicines. Last month we talked about increasing your sensitivities, like resensitizing yourself so you can, really feel the effects of these really gentle messages in the plants that are available all around us. So definitely connecting with local plants and things that grow where you are is a good thing. And I think I'm gonna kind of let okay, this is the slide for Jen. She does the Tarot Tuesdays on Facebook. If you look her up, Jenifer with one N, Jenifer Winn. and Tuesdays at 11:11. Or if you want a full reading, she's very intuitive, psychic. She gets messages if you have somebody that passed on or anything. She can channel that for you potentially. So, and I'm sorry she had to leave, but we still have Megan here, who does retreats all over the world. And yeah, let's hear from her.
Hi, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I know everyone's kind of like on their way into bed. But my name is Megan. No, it's okay. My name is Megan. I officially launched my company, The Embodied Warrior, in 2019 as an international wellness and travel retreat company. And then in 2020, the entire world shut down. Joke's on me. But before that, I actually didn't travel until I graduated from undergrad. And my first time out of the country was to Italy to dance with a company from Atlanta. And like Roma was saying, you learn so much about yourself when you break out of your bubble. You start to see the world in all sorts of ways that you never thought that you could comprehend it before. And it's almost like taking these psychoactive drugs that we just talked about. It's clearing the lens or taking the filter off, taking that habitual pattern of your life story that you were born into, you were raised into, you decided at one point, this is what I'm going to fulfill. You take those off, and for the days you're out of it, you start to see the world in a different way. You start to connect to things beyond your normal pattern. And it provides such a transformational experience. It's beyond any of these psychoactive drugs that we talked about. That's the reason I got into energy work and creating this company around travel and allowing you to unveil your true self, to move into alignment with your dharma or your path, and really embody who you are before the world decided who you were going to be. And when I went into my 300-hour training, my dad passed away unexpectedly 2 months previous. And through breath work and deep meditation, I was able to connect to him in the other dimensions. I had a Kundalini awakening. I astro traveled. I dimension hopped. I reincarnated as my father's dead body. And I vowed that I would never take another I would never take a drug. I didn't really experiment with drugs very much. So understanding that the most powerful drug that you have ever to experience is your breath is amazing and powerful. And so coming back to America after that experience, starting to travel, taking my first job, one of the ways that I initially began traveling was teaching yoga at a big gated community in Nicaragua. And I lived there for 3 years off and on. And I traveled all through Costa Rica. I did a 2-week sound healing training at Lake Atitlan in St. Marcos, where Roma was. In Guatemala, I hosted my first ever retreat in El Salvador and El Tunco in 2017. I volunteered at Selva, which was this beautiful photo of. That's the retreat center that I am no longer hosting a retreat at next month because I decided to make it a personal healing retreat. I haven't had any interest of people wanting to leave the country at the moment. And so I'm going with my energy healer. I'm going with my energy coach and mentor. And we're doing a one-on-one personal healing retreat at Selva. So going to Selva and volunteering for a month is a way to live
in an amazing community, make friends, live with people that are on your same wavelength or in your state of consciousness, that are living out of this blueprint of society, and you don't have to pay anything, right? Like, you live there to work, and you realize very, very, very quickly that less is more. I think the happiest that I was making $25 a day teaching yoga. You know, I was just skipping through the jungles and down the beaches, and yeah, you connect back to that essence of joy, of complete aha, this is me, you know, like this is how I want to feel. And really realizing that you have the power within you to co-create that experience at every moment in your life. So I am no longer hosting a retreat in Costa Rica in June, but that's okay, because I will be hosting more international retreats. I think probably in 2022, once the world figures out what they're doing and everyone, you know, is kind of come to their terms with travel and get back into some pattern of a routine in life. I do have a retreat scheduled as of yesterday for Cape Charles on the Eastern Shore of Virginia in October. And you all are the very first people to hear about it, because I just put the down payment on the house yesterday.
Oh,
So,
cool.
so I don't have any marketing. I'm not even 100% of the dates. Like, I would have to look in my calendar. I'm pretty sure it's the weekend of October 15th, but it'll be Friday afternoon to Sunday evening, excuse me. So that will be my next chance to retune your perspective. I also do sound healing on those retreats and trips. And I also facilitate sound healing ceremonies in Ocean City, Maryland, on the beach and on paddle boards. So I'm excited for the weather to get a little warmer to move into those offerings. Yeah, but if anybody has any questions on how to travel cheaply, where to go, I love to be a tour guide Barbie. I know Roma had reached out to me when she was traveling through Guatemala and Nicaragua and Costa Rica, and I was like, oh, go here and blah, 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 and oh, see this person or go to this place and ask for this, and oh, you're going to want to eat here and you're going to stop there because there's not going to be a bathroom anywhere, and it could take 2 to 4 hours depending on how many cows there are in the road. And
oh yeah, I got lots of good tips from you.
Type of thing. And definitely, if you're interested in exploring any of the psychedelics or plant medicine, especially in the United States, like Jenifer said, do your research into who's offering them. There definitely should be a heavy intake process. It's not just a party drug kind of scenario. And even when you go out of the country, they see your white skin and they just equate it with money. So really doing your research, reaching out to people that are already, you know, traveled to those areas, maybe have experiences sitting with those medicines, and see who they recommend and ask about their experience. But yeah, like I said, the breath definitely has been my most powerful tool. And even Jenifer said that some of the clients at the Pachamama sanctuary, the Holotropic breathwork was the most intense experience, or their favorite experience of the weekend. And I can attest to that. And also, you know, knowing that these plant medicines, they all have a different energy. They all have a different lesson or way of teaching. And that it's essentially to show you that the power and wisdom, it already resides within you. You know, they're just there to hold the mirror up for you. But it's a journey and a trip and an experience nonetheless. Just
That's
always
so cool.
Yeah, just always make, like releasing those expectations and just keeping safety in mind. But that's all. That's all.
Megan,
Travel.
do you have like an Instagram or another social media thing?
Yeah, so I operate off of my personal Instagram, and I can put it in the chat. It's Hoff Fitness, HOEFFITNESS. And my website is theembodiedwarrior.com.
On this slide, it's an active link. So even in the PDF that comes out, you can click Embodied Warrior and it'll go right to her website. But I highly recommend befriending her because her stories are lit. Every day she's outside doing something, encouraging me to go outside. Even today I went for a walk because, one of the things my daily routines is that because of Megan, and I think of you every time I'm like, get outside.
It is, even for for a moment, like even if you're having one of those days where you just need to couch, like I have a mandatory 17-hour minimum couch day, like once a week. And you're just a sloth. And even if it's just like sticking your nose out the slider door just to get that one fresh breath of air, connecting back into nature, really seeing how, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just walk down the earth and I'm like, whoa. And I see a portal, and you're like walking down the beach and you see the reflection of the clouds and the sound of the ocean. And sometimes I just wonder, like, I'm on earth, like this is insane. And we're so lucky, because we have to realize that once we move into the other dimension, once we leave this physical flesh suit, all of the things that cause us despair and pain and agony, those are our superpowers, because the polarity of it is that we experience the euphoria and the joy and the ease and the abundance. So really trying to reframe, and you can do those in those deep meditative states. So finding that intention, maybe to sit with a plant medicine of, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to reframe this story that I have from childhood, or reframe this story that I inherited generationally, and use it to go in and reconnect that neurological synapse, or completely, cross it off. Don't let that fire again. Implant a new story, a new path, a new realization, and then move forward after you come back into this state of awareness and being.
There's actually a good there's a Netflix out that has like 10 or 15-minute episodes about like, what is your dreams. It's called Your Mind or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one about memories and how memories are mostly not factual. There's like, especially situational memory, like it just, our brains create connections. I think you offered a workshop called Our Brains Are Plastic, and
Mm-hmm.
like rewire. And that's the purpose of some of these journeys in plant medicines, like breaking patterns, seeing your purpose, like really getting out of the muck and lotus blossoming, Kundalini awakening.
Well, neuroplasticity is the same thing as muscular plasticity. It's just the ability of your brain to change shape over time due to repetitive action. And that's the same thing, like doing a bicep curl 1,000 times, you're going to develop a bicep muscle. You can completely think the same pattern the same way, you're going to eventually be that thing because you think it. So yeah, lots of stuff. And you can do that in sound ceremony as well. You can drop into that theta wave state, go in, rewrite a story, come out. And that's why a lot of the times that traditional therapy, talk therapy, doesn't work, because you're healing just on a 3-dimensional level. Whereas these plant medicines offer you the ability to strip down your ego, go into that subconscious mind, or that, very space in between, and heal yourself on that energetic level. Yeah, and I'm sure that a lot of that research is coming out from Johns Hopkins, Heather. They just don't talk about it they just don't talk about it the way that we do. They don't say like, oh, your ego's stripping away and you're melting into the space in between. So they have very technical scientific terms.
Yeah. Megan, I wanted to ask, I've had a couple of people tell me how amazing your cacao ceremonies are. Do you have any of those planned for this year here locally?
I actually have enough to host one ceremony currently. That's beyond my personal stash. And then when I go to Costa Rica, I plan to source some from there. So I will be planning one of those for the summer once it gets warmer. But thank you for asking.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love
No,
it. The
thank you.
cacao
Yeah, thank you. I haven't tried it yet, but when I asked, everyone mentioned you in our circle. Yeah.
It is, like Roma said, it's really heart opening. What it does is it goes in, it has a lot of phytochemicals, a lot of euphoric adaptogens that work on your heart, open it, flood your system with happy hormones. And we talked a lot about this before the call, but not having a psychedelic trip unless you're actually in the land that it was, cultivated from. So a lot of people drink it and they're just like, I didn't feel anything. I'm like, well, you're not supposed to feel anything. It's the intention you put into it, and letting go of the expectations of something happening. But I just like to sit in ceremony and have that community and have that experience, of just enjoying this medicine that came from the earth, came from Pachamama, and it tastes so delicious.
I actually have quite a bit of ceremonial cacao, probably enough for at least a couple of ceremonies. And I love to incorporate song and do it outside where there's fire and ocean and air and elements. So I probably will also be offering something later in the year, in the summer. I did offer something on June 20th last year, which was a Sunday. It was Father's Day, but more importantly, it was Litha. It was like the summer solstice, and it was just me and two other people, and I made the cacao traditional way. We sang songs, I shared songs, and some drumming and shakers and things, and I feel like we called on the rain because it just like started. So it was beautiful, but I'm also available for that. So I think it's pretty late. I'm sorry that this is a topic that I could just go on and on forever about, and wanted to share the journal prompts. They've been on the screen for a while. Like, it'll be in the PDF later. These are something to think about for the month. Where do you prefer something new over something old? I'm like constantly starting new projects and craving like new things. But lately I've been trying to go back and like finish crossing the T's and dotting the I's and like staying committed. So kind of the balance between new horizons and putting in roots, think about that this month. Think about how you determine progress, what strategies you have in place to make you feel safe. Like if you're going to travel, a lot of people don't travel because they're afraid. A lot of people don't take drugs because they're afraid. But if you create a safe space, think about that this month. And next month we'll be here doing a sound ceremony. I definitely recommend bringing the headphones next month because Courtney is going to be here for the flower moon. We're going to try to do this sound ceremony over Zoom. Because we're going to keep it over Zoom. I have some people that really want to do in-person things. There might be like an opportunity to do a fusion where like we can have a small group in person and then still have the Zoom. But next month we're going to be talking all about sound, really diving into sound, vibration, and all that, and getting a sound bath. So that is it. That's all I have, folks. anything you'd like to share?
Thank you for hosting another new moon. I'm very happy I got to attend tonight.
Thank you for coming. I was so worried that you guys wouldn't be able to get in because I have so much technical difficulty.
Yeah, thank you, Roma and Megan, both of you. Thanks a lot. And Jen, though she's gone.
Yeah, she had to go.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
You
night.
too.
Good night. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me, Roma. It was fun. And I think it's ironic that it's like practice and persistence and dotting the I's and T's, because I'm shiny ball syndrome. I'm like, ooh, what's next? Ooh, what's next? And I'm like, no. And your journal prompts was like, what have you started but not finished, and why? And I'm just like, is that me? Really?
That was for you. Exactly.
Yeah,
right?
that was my 200-hour YTT manual, and I'm like staring at it right now.
I think the first one was one of mine. Like,
Yeah.
where are you now, and where do you want to be, and what are you doing to get there? I'm right in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just kind of following this book, these ancient traditions, and I'm not really coming up with this. I feel like this is all intuition, and just like the messages I received was like, have these meetings, do it this way, just do it. And I haven't even got the whole year fully fleshed out, and every month is just like new, and I'm just figuring it out as I go along. And I appreciate you guys coming along with me on this fun little journey.
It's nice that it's
Thanks for
organic.
having us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Sasha. Are you still there? All right. Bye. La, 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 la.